Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. This is still Good Morning Kenya. We are still talking about the neglected tropical diseases, and you can obviously be part of this conversation. Shoot whatever questions or clarifications you might be having concerning this NTDs. My guest is definitely still here and he will be answering those questions in a few. Now, before we took that break, we're still trying to understand the 20 that are unique to our country. You talked about the one that you've managed to eradicate. We're just trying to explain to us the 19 still existing, and you are on leprosy.
Yes. So I don't know what comes to your mind when you talk about leprosy, but
the time during Jesus' time.
Yes, it brings back the Bible, and if it was in the Bible times, it's still existing to date, then it tells you that there have been no priority to eliminate such kind of disease that we are able to eliminate. So leprosy still exists, but the country stands a better chance to eliminate it also amongst by 2030. The fifth neglected tropical diseases that probably most will associate but may not know whether it is neglected tropical diseases is called rabies. Rabies is caused by a bite from rabid dogs. So that is also listed among the neglected tropical diseases.
So let me just interject there a bit. So it means that sometimes someone can be bit by a dog and they just take it like nothing happened, but it may actually end up having severe consequence in the future.
Yes, if you don't get intervention, then the consequences, you will die.
Is that serious?
It's that serious.
All right.
Yes. The sixth neglected tropical diseases that is endemic in the country is called lymphatic filariasis or elephantiasis. Just a brief background, the Ministry of Health has conducted mapping exercise of this condition, and it was only of public health importance in the coastal region. We've done quite a lot of interventions in the coastal region, and you can prevent this by giving community some preventive tablets on a yearly basis so that to reduce transmission. It's caused also by mosquito bites. So we are looking towards elimination by 2027. The other one is called the blinding trachoma. Blinding trachoma is in arid and semi-arid, so you can see now we are moving from coast-western to northeastern. And also parts of the Rift Valley majorly. The government has done tremendous work in providing preventive medicines in these communities, and we've stopped treating in 7 out of the 12 endemic counties, and we are now treating only in 5. And we anticipate to stop treatment by next year.
Okay.
The 8th neglected tropical disease is called soil-transmitted helminths. It's commonly referred to as intestinal worms, and this is the one that impact majority of Kenyans, over 25 million in over 27 counties.
This is the most dominant one.
Yes. And probably maybe, as you asked, how is awareness? Maybe the question you will not answer it, when was the last time you dewormed yourself? And if you say no, then probably from a point of knowledge, if you've never dewormed maybe in the last 1 year, or you can't remember, how about that poor person? So that tells you the magnitude of this disease. So that is the 8th and most prevalent neglected tropical disease in the country that impacts education, it impacts on the development of children, and also on the economy overall. The 9th neglected tropical diseases that the ministry is working closely towards its control is called Schistosomiasis or bilharzia. Again, bilharzia is mostly in the lake region, the western parts. We see pockets in Rift Valley, central parts near Mwea, lower eastern, and the coastal region. That is where we see bilharzia. So 2 forms exist, the intestinal bilharzia and also the urogenital bilharzia, the one that the only evidence you can see is when you urinate blood. That is the outcome. But the intestinal, most of the times we don't look at our stool So you can't say whether you're impacted, but for the urinary one, probably you can see.
You can see it.
The 10th neglected tropical diseases that the ministry is closely working towards its control is called leishmaniasis or Kala-Azar. Again, this one is in arid and semi-arid, transmitted also by very small insects called sandflies that bites you and transmit this disease. The two forms, one is called visceral leishmaniasis. It affects the internal organs. And there's another one that is called cutaneous leishmaniasis. It leaves you with very dented patches on your face or any area that is affected. Very stigmatizing. So you look at the photos of those who have recovered, then you will see permanent scars on them. Probably you are aware of the duo called dengue and chikungunya. This one is also a mosquito-borne disease. Circulation of viral in nature, transmitted by mosquitoes, but the circulation, antibody circulation has been reported in all regions of Kenya, but we see upsurge in the coastal and northeastern parts of the countries where we have Aedes mosquitoes predominantly abundant in those areas. So those 11, you find that the program is very active on those particular 11.
In terms of eradicating them?
In terms of elimination and interventions geared towards control and elimination. Now, there are also those others that have been reported, but we don't have a very clear picture of their distribution in the country. So there's one called Equinococcasis or hydatid disease. It's been reported in Turkana. And we also have another one called Food-Borne Termatodiasis. Maybe what comes in your mind, one example is tapeworm. I don't know, the last time when I was growing up, they used to say they pull some worms outside. People's walking, those who used to wear shorts, they could pull those worms. So we don't have a very clear burden distribution of food-borne termatodiasis in the country. We've got reported cases of schistosomiasis, and in most western parts of the country, again, where they feed on pork products, not well cooked, so you find that it affects your nervous system, so you fall down, so they cause more or less like epilepsy. So most people call it epileptic, that is what they associate it with, but there's components of schistosomiasis in those areas. The 15th NTD is called scabies and other ectoparasites, and one of the ectoparasites that come into your mind is probably jiggers. As part of the NTDs, and maybe now when it goes to the poor, you know what happens in that particular NTD. The 16th that was added in the year 2017, because of low prioritization, is snake bite envenoming.
So also this is part of those
of the neglected tropical
NTDs.
diseases. So I was talking about if you are bitten by a snake, where will you get the antivenom? How accessibility, affordability. So those are some of the issues surrounding the neglected tropical diseases. We also have one called mycetoma. We don't know its distribution. Buruli ulcers, yaws. Those ones we don't know their distribution. So that gives you a list of mostly, they could probably be around, but we don't know quite well their distribution.
And I think it was so important for you to just keep breaking down for us, because the way we began this conversation, we said one of those things that is lacking is the creation of awareness. We don't even know they are there with us. So trying to better explain to us bit by bit and listening to perhaps how you would know even when you get it, it becomes very important. Now, even as you're going around with that, you're talking about areas of western region, coastal region. I've not had anywhere where we've talked about central, eastern, and I don't want to say that I want those places to also be on the statistics. But what is so different about the western region and the coastal region that a good number of these diseases would be found in such areas?
So it does not mean I said that bilharzia is found in central.
Okay. But largely it's around western and coastal. Yeah,
so
that's
one
what
of
I
the things that makes western coast is the climatic and environmental condition that makes it easier for this parasitic infection to thrive.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so it's just because of the climatic conditions around that area.
Sure.
All right. The global summit that is happening between 30th and 1st. Talk to us about that.
To create awareness of these diseases, both government together with other partners are working together to achieve both control and elimination.
Okay.
So on 30th to 1st of June, we'll be having a learning summit to just picture what is it that we've achieved in the last 10 years for the control of these neglected tropical diseases. Of course, we'll not be talking about 4 of them. Out of the list I've given, there are those that I give you medicines you're able to prevent. So they're called preventive chemotherapy, neglected tropical. So those are the ones that we are going to talk about. Okay. What is it? What has been our journey in the last 10 years?
All right.
Now, what is the picture looking like between now and the year 2030? WHO launched its strategic plan for neglected tropical diseases 2021-2030, and it calls for endemic countries at least to eliminate 1 neglected tropical disease within that period. But you can see, as I've enumerated, Kenya is under a possibility of eliminating about 6. Minimum we are giving ourselves is 4. So out of those 4, there are about 2 preventive chemotherapy that we want to see what is our roadmap between now and 2030.
Okay.
The third objective of the Learning Summit is to see how we can collaborate with various leaders to enhance advocacy for these neglected tropical diseases with an aim to tap into domestic resource for sustainability of the interventions that we are doing. The fourth one is to see how we can integrate these interventions. Most of them have been campaign-based. They are not more of integrated within the mainstream ministry activities. So how can we mainstream them, and how can we expand the collaboration in cross-cutting issues?
All right, so clearly it's going to be a holistic summit there. And also there's that plan to eradicate these diseases or end them by 2030. I know this is a plan by the End Fund, and the Vice President was supposed to be here, but she hasn't made it. But perhaps you can also just make us understand just a bit, how is this going to be possible? We're talking about perhaps 7 to 8 years before we get to that time of the year 2030. Is there strategies, framework in place for this?
Yes, there are strategies and frameworks that are in place, despite the list being long.
Yeah, because it is.
There are strategies to achieve control as well as elimination.
Okay.
The Ministry of Health has launched almost 2 strategic documents for control and elimination. There's one for 2011-2015. There's one that expired in 2020, and we are currently coming up with 2022-2027. And there are also some other disease-specific ones from the bigger. When you have the document for 20, you can't articulate the issue for one disease. So because of the specific nature, we have one that is dealing with what's called Breaking Transmission Strategy 2019-2023.
Okay.
And we also have one for Leishmaniasis 2021-2025.
Right.
So, and we also have a guideline for prevention and management of snakebite and venoming. So the ministry has got tools on how we want to move towards 2030 roadmap.
Clearly, so is a laid down structure to see how we can actually end these entities.
Yes. So, and of course, you can't do it alone. That is why now you have partnership with the End Fund and other partners to help us accelerate and achieve the targets that we've set.
All right. And this will be a disservice if we don't talk about the kind of population it might affect. Even as we wind down this conversation, we want to understand very quickly, in the demographics that we have, which population does this diseases really affect the most?
Again, it will be disease specific.
Or depending with the type of disease.
So for example, if I say lymphatic filariasis is transmitted by mosquito, it doesn't disregard any age.
All right.
If I have a parasite and I bite you, whether you are a child or you are
an adult,
you get infected. Soil transmitted helmintestinal worm, it doesn't regard. I give you money with the eggs of these worms, you ingest, it doesn't describe whether you are an adult or children, but you will find that there's certain cohort that are mostly impacted. For example, intestinal worms, mostly children, but does not mean that adults are spared either. Yes.
So it just depends with the kind of disease you're talking about, then it defines the kind of population.
The kind of the population.
It might affect.
Yes.
Lastly, what would be your clarion call to particularly stakeholders? I mean, just looking at how you have enumerated this entire conversation, it clearly shows that yes, we could be there, but we still have a long way to go in eradicating NTDs.
My clarion call would be that we work together as a team to ensure that we achieve our goal for control and ultimately eliminate these conditions. Otherwise, we cannot work alone as an entity to achieve those particular goals. So it is good to come together as a team to achieve the goals that have been highlighted in the ministry, which also align to the global goals, so that we can help the community members get rid of these diseases that impact them. Good place to end it. Working as a team, it is. All right, I've been speaking to Wyckliff Omondi, who is the head of vector-borne and neglected tropical diseases at the Ministry of Health, obviously talking to us about this kind of diseases and what you and I can do to see how best we can eradicate NTDs altogether. Good place to end this conversation. Still more coming up after this break.